We're about $1 billion publicly traded company. I think we're not a well-known entity to many of you, but hopefully you'll get to know us and our company a little better. And I have some really interesting news about Zebra that I'm going to talk about at the end of my presentation. I am so excited about the Internet of Things, in particular for what it means to improve customer experience. You know, I'm going to talk to you today in 3 acts. The Greeks told us all good stories happen in 3 acts. And so my presentation has 3 acts. The first act is about how the IoT is transforming businesses today. The second act is reality. I have so many old systems, I don't know where to begin with the IoT. And the third act is where our hero succeeds and we move forward with the IoT. Why should businesses care about the IoT? It sounds exciting, trillions of devices hooked to the internet, but why should businesses care? Is it about reducing expenses? I hear that all the time. Is it about increasing revenue? How do we justify this investment to our CFOs who are hounding us for more efficient use of our R&D dollars? I really believe that leaders win always by delivering the better customer experience. I really liked the presentation earlier where they listed the leaders of the last decade, and virtually all of them did it by delivering a better customer experience, and that's why they grew to become the monster companies they are today. New businesses are disrupting old industries every day using 3 important technologies: mobility, cloud, and the Internet of Things. And we will continue to see this happen. And at this very moment, there's some startup happening that's going to transform the industry you're in using those 3 technologies. And the question is, are you going to be the person doing it themselves, or will you be one of the companies disrupted? Last year, I talked about Zipcar, which is a great pay-as-you-go rental car company that's really transforming the way millennials use cars. It means that millennials don't need to buy cars anymore. They just rent cars as they need them. And this whole service is enabled by the Internet of Things. The Zipcar service wouldn't work without the Internet of Things. We heard yesterday from Wim about Uber, the taxi service that's revolutionizing taxi usage throughout the world. And I want to drill down on Uber a little bit and really identify what makes Uber work. Real-time information is critical to Uber. When you take out your iPhone Uber app and you open it up, you see in real time the location of all the cars in your vicinity with an estimate of how long it would take for that car to get to you. You see the name of the driver that you've picked to come and pick you up, and I've talked to a number of people that as soon as they see the picture of the driver, they suddenly get a feeling of contentment knowing who's going to come and pick them up. By matching all this information in real time, it makes a superior customer experience. Now, this model is so powerful that it's disrupting the old taxi industry throughout the world. In fact, Uber managed to get the first continent-wide strike in Europe, where all the taxi drivers went on strike because of their fear of Uber coming to their cities. That's super powerful. One of the things that people always throw at Uber is it's not regulated. How can you trust a taxi service that isn't regulated by the government? And it's a great question. Why do people prefer to take Uber, and why do they feel more comfortable taking Uber even though it's not regulated by the government? The answer is because everything is documented with the IoT. This is a receipt from a trip I took last week in Paris, from the center of Paris to Charles de Gaulle Airport, and the entire trip is documented, from the driver I got, when I was picked up, when I was dropped off, the entire map we took. There's no opportunity for any shenanigans with the kind of documentation they get from the IoT. The IoT not only gives you a better customer experience, it's a more comforting experience because of the real-time documentation of that experience. And that's a theme that keeps coming back again and again and again in delivering superior customer experience. It's not only the fact that you have to do something, it's the fact that there's an accountability there that comes from real-time data and real-time documentation. New companies are revolutionizing old businesses every day using these kinds of principles. Now, for many years, we built processes and procedures assuming that people were sitting around. This is our view of the way our employees were, and it's in fact a view of the way many of our customers were. But that's not real life. In real life, people are moving. They're moving all the time. And all of the applications that we create need to recognize that. and they need to be mobile applications. And they need to leverage all the tools available for these mobile applications. This is what the 24-year-olds are recognizing when they're transforming industries. Now, let's look at specifically how these mobile applications are built. Typically, you have a mobile application communicating to something in the cloud. What the IoT brings to us is real-time data to that mobile application, where that mobile application can get now information about the environment anywhere in the world and really transform that experience. Both the mobile user and the IoT put their data up in the cloud and interact with that data. Now, one of the things that I'm going to talk about a little more later in my presentation, but I'm going to introduce the concept here, is there are different ways we can organize all this data in the cloud. And I'm a big believer in a particular way to organize it that makes the building of effective solutions much easier, and that's to organize it in the form of avatars. All of us need to ask ourselves, can we see what others can't see? Because if you can see things that others can't see, you can deliver a better experience and you can deliver a better business proposition to your customers. If you're walking down the street, perhaps there's a water main ahead of you that's about to fail. Perhaps there's a person walking ahead of you that's an old friend of yours that if you knew they were there, you'd stop and talk to them. Perhaps there's a favorite restaurant of yours that has a special that you didn't notice, but you would have taken an action if you had known about it. Imagine you're in the business of trucking produce across the country. This is perishable goods. And it's costing you a lot of money, a lot of fuel costs to transport those goods. Now, what if that truck is getting too hot? What if the goods in the back are starting to spoil? If you knew that in real time, if you could see what others couldn't see, you could take remedial action. You could tell the driver to stop and check his refrigeration unit. You could go and, in fact, maybe even turn the truck around and send it back because there's no point in having it drive 500 miles with rotten fruit in the back. If you're the store that's using that fruit, are you managing your fruit best in real time? Are you putting out in front the fruit that should be put out because it's going to expire? Are you marking down goods that might be getting a bit stale? Is your stock low? All these things are critical to efficient operations of your business, and all of these things can be found through the Internet of Things. Imagine you're an owner of a big warehouse. Are the goods put in the right position? Should goods be rotated? Should goods be reordered because they're low and your inventory is out of date? All of these things make the difference between a great experience and a poor experience, and by the way, also affect our costs and expenses. But unfortunately, our hero lives in the real world. They have a lot of old systems. We all have old applications. In some cases, we even have mainframe applications. We have multiple systems that don't talk to each other. We're using up our entire IT budgets just to maintain these old environments. And what I find again and again is nobody has a capital budget to do anything new in corporations. I talk to company after company, big companies, small companies, have all squeezed the capital budgets to the point that it's all being used just to maintain the old systems. And how do we get out of that loop in order to do something new and exciting and really transform our experiences? Well, the first thing to understand is all enterprises have valuable real-time data. It's a question of who's going to exploit it. You could exploit it, or you could pay somebody else who exploits it for you. Here's an example of a big famous company, Google, who's in their shopping experience showing real-time inventory levels to a retailer. And they are hosting this information within their shopping experience. And Google does this a lot with retailers, and it's in their interest to do it, to build up their shopping experience. I think there's a legitimate argument to say, if you're not going to invest to exploit your own real-time data, then allow someone else to do it and buy it back from them. You can probably deliver a better customer experience in doing that. But you can also do it yourself. Elevator companies learned from the very invention of the elevator that real-time information made all the difference in the world between a good elevator experience and a bad one. While you're waiting for the elevator, just look in the lobby and look at how many people are looking up at the dial to see when the elevator is going to come and whether it's moving up or moving down. Just that little bit of information substantially improves the overall customer experience. How many times do you hear people complain in a restaurant? What's the first word out of their mouth? Do you know how long I've been waiting? Customers want to know if you're paying attention to their quality of service. And companies who recognize that and publicly post the quality of service where everybody can see it, A, make the customers happier, B, use that information effectively to produce a better overall customer experience. We heard from the city of Chicago at the kickoff of the conference as to how they're going to automate their bus system to give riders real-time information about where buses are and when they're going to arrive. It's been a well-understood thing in metropolitan transit districts that the more information the riders have, the more they will ride their buses. Businesses today, unfortunately, live in a very antiquated environment. If you're importing containers of goods from China and you want to know where those goods are today, you need to query multiple manual systems as that container gets handed off between multiple entities. But there's really no reason for this to be true. All parts of the supply chain today can be instrumented with Internet of Things devices that are readily available off the shelf. So how should we move forward? How can we change the world in a productive way? Well, IoT devices are readily available today to really transform businesses. Whether we're talking barcodes, RFID devices, GPS tracking devices, temperature tracking, factory automation systems. I think from a number of the speakers at the conference today, we heard about all kinds of great instrumentation that's available today to instrument virtually every process that exists. And all of these should be woven together to really transform your particular experience. There are some new building blocks that I thought would be interesting to talk about that might be impactful for your business. One of them is public displays. Now, many of you remember the Tom Cruise movie Minority Report, and it was set in the not-too-distant future, and in this not-too-distant future, the Tom Cruise character would walk into a retail establishment, and all these very realistic displays would recognize him and start responding to him and pitching him, whether he was walking down a corridor or whether he was in a store, and it was very impactful for a lot of people because of how lifelike it was. Well, we live in an era now where the price of public displays is falling like a rock. If you walk around this hotel, you'll notice they use a lot of digital displays in the hotel, but they still have some old displays. And I predict when you come back to this hotel in not too many years, all of those old displays are going to be replaced by electronic displays because they're so effective. In fact, I might be afraid to say that the price of displays is falling so fast that we're going to see almost every vertical surface covered with them in the not-too-distant future. From small electronic shelf edge labels to give you real-time pricing information to large advertising displays, virtually all signage and information is going to be digital. So the question is, what are people going to do with that? I believe it's even going to impact industries like shipping and receiving. As I go around and talk to customers, I've talked to a number of them who said, if in my loading dock I could have the same kind of information flow that you have in an airport where I have a screen and I can see what delivery services are coming in the next hour, I could substantially transform my business and give real-time information to my workers. So the portrayal of real-time information in public ways, I think, is going to be very impactful and powerful for many industries, not just the consumer-facing things like retail. There's another interesting technology. The technology is called beacons. It's been in the news a bit lately. Beacons, if you don't know, comes from Bluetooth. It's a part of the new Bluetooth 4.0 standard. It's called Bluetooth Low Energy. And what this new standard allows is very small little Bluetooth transmitters to be built that are battery operated and will operate for years, sending out small signals. Now, Apple has a proprietary protocol that they put on top of this Bluetooth standard, and they call it iBeacon. It's important to recognize that iBeacon is Apple's own trademark for their protocol-protected version of that. But many companies are using beacons with alternative protocols. So please don't confuse the two words. They both generally apply to the same category of technology. Now, the really exciting things about beacons, which I really only understood in the last year, was they can be picked up by all modern smartphones. And this is revolutionary. My companies have been involved with location products for many years, and I'm going to talk to you about one later that's exciting. But many of them have required complex infrastructure to be put in. This is the first one that works with every smartphone in your pocket. And by cleverly using that smartphone, you can do a lot of interesting things. For instance, if you have customers in a retail store who download your store app on their phone, that store app can be listening for beacons in the background, and you can use that information to locate that customer within a few feet of where they are in the store. By putting these beacons different locations in the store, you can know where that person is standing. And you can start to recreate the Tom Cruise experience. Now, there are a lot of issues raised by this technology. What to do with all this beacon location data? I'm a big believer in it. I think it's going to be very impactful, but I think we need to be careful about how we do it. I think we should seriously try to engage our customers. A person I know in the beacon industry who had a very clever saying, I didn't invent it, it was a clever saying, but it was, we should be surprising and delightful, not creepy and annoying with this information. And it's a good expression, and my own personal view is there are a lot of people thinking what you should do with this location information is send advertising to your smartphone. My personal view is that's going to get creepy and annoying really fast. And so instead, what I believe we need to do is, first of all, give people a positive reason to want to be tracked, that give them a benefit for it, and I think they will accept it. In particular, this new generation of people who have been raised with smartphones and track all their friends all the time, they're not against being tracked, as long as you give them a reason to do it. Just like I liked being tracked in my Uber car rental service because it gave me a benefit of making sure nobody was cheating me. I think public displays are a good output mechanism to interact with people using beacon technology. And I think we can do it either anonymously or personalized. Personalized would mean, like in the Tom Cruise movie, the beacon or the display would say, "Hello, Phil, welcome back to the Gap store." Anonymously would be like Google does when they're tracking you as you browse the internet. I think everybody realizes that as you cruise from website to website, you're being tracked by Google, and they don't let you know that they're doing it, but I know they're doing it because I was searching for lawnmowers a week ago, and I keep seeing lawnmower ads no matter where I browse the internet for the next 3 weeks. So both can be done with beacons and public displays. Now, an important thing to understand is you can build applications with public displays and beacons very quickly when you leverage a cloud service to help you tie the pieces together. My company is demoing some of these out in the lobby. I would encourage you to look at them. The really important news was we didn't take much time or effort to do them. We've put them together very quickly by leveraging smartphones who could listen for these beacons, displays that are talking to a cloud service, and a cloud service to connect the pieces together. So I really think it's important to start thinking like 24-year-olds. I was glad to hear about the hackathon. I think it's important for all of us to listen and hear how those people think about solving problems. And they think about solving problems in different ways. And one of the first things they do is they start small. You don't try to boil the ocean. When you think about the companies you keep reading about where 10, 24-year-olds start a company and a year later they're sold to Google for $1 billion. What was going on there? Well, you could say, well, they had a good idea. Well, they had a good idea, but more than that, typically they started with a simple concept and they used some powerful tools to build it. And the three powerful tools I think that should be the basis of all these new projects are mobility, cloud, and the IoT, which, by the way, are the only three tools that 24-year-olds know about, and they're going to be the ones that are going to transform the industry. I was interested to hear from Pascal the idea of somebody wanting to buy a power transformer on a pay-as-you-go basis earlier this morning. I think he was onto something there. I think the world is moving quickly to get around that capital budget problem I talked about earlier, to buy everything on a pay-as-you-go model. I think when you look at the products and services that companies have today, and you look at it 10 years from now, there's going to be a substantial shift into people purchasing things on a pay-as-you-go model. So whether you're a technology supplier, even as much as a transformer, or whether you're somebody purchasing IT services, start thinking about how pay-per-use can be actualized in your view of the future. I'm going to talk about a couple examples of companies who are doing this and hopefully provoke some thoughts in your mind. One of them is a startup company called KitCheck. And the problem they're addressing is a problem in hospitals, which is when you're treated in the emergency room, the doctor uses a tray of drugs and pharmacy items. They rip open the seal, they take out these drugs, they treat you, and then when the procedure's over, these trays have to go back to the pharmacy. And it's a very manual, time-consuming process for the pharmacy techs to go through these trays and to check and see what's missing, what's been used, and what items are expired. And if you don't do it right, it can be very dangerous. What KitCheck has done, which is really phenomenal, and they're achieving really great success in a very short amount of time, is they have a cloud application, they have an Internet of Things connected RFID reader box, and they have an RFID IoT connected label printer. The label printer is used to make RFID labels that are put on all the pharmacy items, and then they take trays, they put them in this reader box. The box tells them what's missing through a cloud service. They can replenish it, they can seal it, and then they can put the sealed box back in the tray back in the box and verify that everything is there. By doing that, they've been able to reduce the time from 30 minutes to 3 minutes to replenish these trays, which is phenomenal productivity gain. And it's an overall better experience for everybody. Who wants to spend all that time going through all those trays? Another example that my company's involved with is a pilot we're in for emergency patient tracking. The problem is you have a heart attack. What you need to do is you need to get a balloon angioplasty. And the time from when you first have the heart attack to being in the balloon catheterization lab is very critical. Unfortunately, it's something that's very difficult for the healthcare system to track. Why? Because the patients are being transferred between multiple entities. It's sort of an emergency situation, and how do you really write it all down and use a stopwatch and check the time and everything? It's really an ideal problem for the IoT. The way we're solving it is we're taking wristbands that have beacons in them. And the beacons are transmitting the information about the patient in real time, and they're picked up by tablets that we put on the wall from the ambulance and through the healthcare system. So as the patient moves along, these displays are reading his location, and they're giving real-time information to the caregivers about where they are progressing through the system. Now, I know a lot of people are concerned about privacy and things. Here's the interesting thing, and it really gets to the heart of customer experience, which is we found that when patients ask what is the purpose of this wristband and they know what it's for is to track their time through the system, they start waving their hands to the readers to make sure that they're being read. They're having a heart attack and they're interested in this wristband and they're waving it because they want to see that monitor switch to know that they've been registered. They want to participate in that experience. It's just like the person waiting in line who wants to know, do we all have a shared view of my quality of service? And I don't think you can get a better example of why real-time information is viewed as a positive thing by all participants in any kind of experience that they're in. Finally, the hospitals can use the statistics for this to improve their overall processes and eliminate any bottlenecks in the system. Another interesting thing was my company's been selling real-time location systems to industries for many years. They're used in automobile manufacturing, they're used in container ships and all kinds of things. But recently this year we announced a deal with the NFL where we're supplying these real-time location systems to put on the players. So if you watch American football, I know not everyone in the audience is a fan of American football, but we put these tags on each shoulder pad, and then in real time the location of these players can be tracked and used for some interesting things. Obviously, it can be used long-term to look at player statistics, but what's really interesting is it can substantially enhance the viewing experience at home. Now, when a quarterback drops back to throw a pass, we can light up on the screen all of the eligible receivers downfield. It's really bringing the broadcast experience on par with what the video game experience is. And so it's a very exciting application of Internet of Things and a very fun thing of watching professional football. Now I'm going to come back to that concept I mentioned earlier about avatars. I was having a conversation with Professor Sanjay Sarma from MIT, and if you don't know Professor Sarma, his lab has done a number of very interesting things, including inventing the passive RFID standard, and by the way, his lab coined the phrase, the Internet of Things. And he was telling me about a project he had to take a car, he challenges grad students, and to put it on the internet. And very quickly they discovered it's not the best idea to put your car directly on the internet. It's a better idea to abstract it. And as he explained to me, it's kind of like a Facebook page. We all know what Facebook is. It is in effect a virtual representation of people, or me in this case. It's one that I may update, or it's one that others may update about me. What's really powerful about Facebook is all of the information in my homepage, my avatar, can be exposed to third-party applications through an API. So by extracting real people into virtual avatars and then exposing that through an API, we can build all kinds of powerful systems that are today being used across the internet. Devices need avatars too. You know, architecture is super important. By using good architecture, you can take a complicated problem and make it much simpler. And I think in some cases, the Internet of Things has been made too complicated. It can actually be implemented quite simply with a good architecture. And I think avatars are a good way to do it. You can build avatars for all kinds of devices, a vending machine, you know, a bicycle. We actually have an avatar for a bicycle out in the lobby, and even Phil's iPhone, or in this case, a wine rack, can all be turned into an avatar. And by leveraging avatars, you can get and build IoT applications very quickly, like we did when we did those demonstrations of beacons and public displays. What we do is we establish a high security connection to these devices through an open API that's industry standard, a standard called CoAP. And we contain and synchronize a real-time avatar in the cloud with the real device. And then we expose that information to third-party applications. It's a very powerful concept that dramatically simplifies the use of the Internet of Things. I'll also have some interesting news about my company, Zebra. As I said earlier, we're a billion-dollar publicly traded company, but we really believe in mobility, cloud, and the Internet of Things so much that last April, we announced our plans to purchase a substantial part of the assets of Motorola Solutions. Many of you may know Motorola Solutions as the leading purveyor of ruggedized mobile devices, Android and Windows, barcode scanners, RFID scanners, and a host of other products and services that are used in industry. We think that by this combination of combining a leader in the IoT and a leader in mobility, we will really can become a trusted partner for many people in transforming their own businesses. We're going to grow from a $1 billion company to a $3.5 billion company with about 7,000 employees. So it's a very exciting transaction. We hope to have it completed by the end of the year. Finally, again, I just want to repeat, I'm super excited about the Internet of Things. I really think it has the potential for transforming customer experiences no matter what industry you are. And I really encourage everybody to think seriously how to implement it in some small practical way in your organization. Thank you very much.